Hi, friends. So today we are talking about Naoto Hattori, a Japanese pop surrealism artist who creates whimsical depictions of animals and fairy like people. He was born in 1975 and he is still alive today, so he is an artist of the present. Now, one of the things that Naoto Hattori does with his surrealism artwork is that he adds really intricate details and texture. I want to show you in Canvas how to create a landscape in the background using the layers tab. So up here at the top, we have our layers tab. And you can see if I click on these little eyeballs, you can see what I've created and what layer they're on, even the background. So we're going to create a new drawing. I click this blue button up here, new drawing. So we're going to start with a background. Now, the paint bucket down here, you can choose any of these pre-made colors in the color palette or create a custom color. I like mine to be just a little bit softer and a little bit grayer up here. Now, as soon as I start drawing, I'm gonna make sure my size is up and my opacity is all the way solid. As soon as I start drawing, it's actually going to create a new layer for me. That first layer, that we added is the background color. And just like any landscape, it doesn't have to be perfect because the ground is never a straight line. If you wanted it to be a straight line, you could grab um, your eraser tool and create it the way that you want to. Maybe I want it to be like a little bit more like grass, so I could just add a little bit more texture already to the background. But I think I just want to go be straightforward with this. And you know what? I think actually I should limit how much grass is there, because one of the things that we learned about in class is that Naoto Hattori does these giant balloon-like animals where they're swollen and kind of chubby, and they float like balloons. So I want to make sure that you have plenty of sky to create those balloons floating. All right, so I think that's a good start. All right, so if we click on this layers tab up here, you can see that I've just created my background. I have a background layer. So I'm going to keep adding details to my background, maybe add some darker green trees or grass. Bring the size up. I love to make trees kind of like an arrow that's pointing up to the sky, but this will help people understand that this is the background and it's super far away. These trees are really, really far away. Adding sound effects totally does help your artwork. I had a teacher in college who always said that, and I thought that was the most wild thing I've ever heard in my life. But you know what? It does. It helps. It helps a lot. Let's add a little bit more of these bushes and grasses. Maybe we'll turn these into shadows. Oh, you know what? Sorry, you can hear my wife yelling in the background because she's talking to someone on the phone. Switch it back to this color. Yeah, these look like great shadows. I want to make sure all my shadows are pointing in the right direction. All right, so this is my background. I'm also going to go ahead and add clouds, and instead of choosing white, I'm going to choose an off-white color, and I'll use the chalk and drop my opacity down just a little bit. This way, when I add these layers, right? When I layer the chalk over itself, it'll get darker, but only slightly. And with clouds, you kind of have more of a flat bottom, and then it's a little bit wigglier at the top. And every time you add a little bit more of that chalk, you'll get this like nice, thicker white color. See, so this is like a lighter version. And then if I come back over it again, you can see how it gets darker. All right, so once I've added all of the clouds that I want, these clouds, maybe I'll make this one like really puffy. That's kind of nice. And maybe something off to the side. That's nice. You can see that the clouds are now attached to my background. And I'll show you how to use that in just a second. So now that I'm ready to create my balloon animals, I'm going to click on this plus sign up here to start a new layer. This is important because we can erase just on the layer instead of erasing through all of the different layers. So I'll show you what that looks like. Let's see. Let's grab a brown color. Remember, in the custom color palette, you want to find like a nice orange shade, and then you can find all these beautiful shades of brown. So I'm going to start with like a darker brown color. Yep. And let's get this just like that. So let's say I make a mistake. I can click on my eraser tool, and instead of erasing part of the background or those clouds that I worked so hard on, it'll just erase on this layer, which is awesome and super helpful. And I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit lighter, and then switch back to my marker tool and just add, oh, that's a little bit too big. Let's hit undo. You can also hold Command Z or Control Z to make this smaller. I'm going to add a little bit of a lighter brown just on the top. Just on the top. Kind of trying to make it look more like a sphere, right? So that the light from the sun is coming onto the top of it. And I'll add some shading on this side to match the shadows of the trees in just a moment. Let's pause this for a moment. I'm going to add a little, well, actually, you know what? I'll just keep adding my details for you guys. Here we go. If I go back to my palette, all of the custom colors that I've created are now under recent. So I can switch back and forth easily from these two colors, right? From my light brown that I just created and my dark brown. So I can come back in and kind of make this a little bit more pointed edge, just kind of like an actual sphere. All right, now I'm going to add an even darker shade of brown, just slightly darker shade of brown for my pug face. I'm going to make a little pug face. So I have this nice deep brown. And you know what? I'm going to use this same shade of brown for the shading. I'm going to drop my opacity down and then just go ahead and lightly, very carefully go just on the bottom half of my sphere to give it like a little bit of shading. Just a little bit. And see, if I come off the side, again, you can use your eraser tool just on this one layer. There we go. It's fine. It's not perfect, but it's okay. It's okay. All right, let's switch back to my lighter color. I'm going to use my pen tool and add in some details. So I really liked in Naoto Hattori's artwork, he has these big eyes. So instead of drawing an actual balloon animal like these penguins in the background, I'm going to add details to my pug so it has more of like a big shiny eyeball. So let's go ahead and add one big eye on one side, and then I'll add two little eyes on the other side. Ooh, it kind of looks like a spider so far. That's kind of awesome. All right, now let's add those pupils. It's so cute. It's so cute already. All right, I'm actually going to drop my opacity down to add these details because I want him to have kind of like some wrinkles around his face. Oh my goodness, this guy is so funny looking already. Oh, I love it. Look how goofy he looks. That's amazing. We'll add those ears. I can come back in and add more details in just a moment. And you know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna use the same color to add his little puppy feet. Oh yeah, that is hilarious. Now, if you wanted to, you can outline the whole thing. I think I'm gonna skip that part, but I want to make sure I have his tail. Let's do like a light brown tail. Let's do a light brown tail. Oh, I forgot my opacity. That's okay. There's his little tail. And let's make that a little bit darker. Drop that opacity down a little bit. Just on the bottom so he has that same shading. Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. I love it so much. Okay, so then we'll add his little back feet. His little back feet. Oh my goodness. And I I think it's really important to mention that if you have if you're whatever animal you decided to create, you should always have fun with it. Like I'm laughing, I'm having a great time. Does it look perfect? No. Is it still really fun to make? Yes. Let's change my opacity down and add a little bit more shading just underneath the bottom of the tail and around the bottom of his belly and then on his back legs because these are definitely in shadow. Now, when you're adding a shadow to the ground, you kind of want to think the same way that we did with the trees. Instead of me using black, let's see if I can show you this real quick. Let's use a black. Instead of using black, right? This is kind of too dark of a shadow for our puppy. So we are going to use a shade of green. So I used light green for the ground, and I'm going to add a slightly darker green. So I'll show you how to do that. You click on the color that you used for the grass, go to custom, and then just barely move it at a diagonal to get it a little bit darker. And then we can start layering with a low opacity for our shadow. You'll notice this in real life when you're walking around. You'll see things where you're like, it kind of looks gray, right? This even looks gray. We know it's green. We can see the green on the marker, but it looks like a shadow, and we know it's a shadow. So you'll see this in real life all the time, where your mind tells you it's gray, but in reality, it's just a shade of this green from your shadow. Just like on the sidewalk, it's a slightly darker version of the sidewalk. So now I want to add teeny tiny details, just like Naoto Hattori did. I want to make the eye look glassy, and then I want to give him all of these teeny tiny little hairs. Now, we talked about how when creating texture, you are actually doing a pattern, right? You're doing a pattern. Let's make this slightly darker so you can see it. Let's just go down a little bit. So I'm going to draw teeny tiny lines. Oh, it's too hard to see. Let me try making it just a little bit darker so you guys can see it. Yeah, that's good. So you're going to make teeny tiny lines over and over again, maybe a couple of long lines, a couple of short lines. And you're going to do this as many times as you want or as you can. I know we're little, we're young, and it can get really exhausting to do the same thing over and over again. So this takes a lot of patience, right? It takes a lot of patience. And thinking about Naoto Hattori as a micro painter, he paints really small with a paintbrush the size of a toothbrush, and it can take him up to 12 hours to do something this big, right? So we know that we have to be patient. So if you wanted to, you could go really fast, click, drag, click, drag, click, drag, click, drag, using my trackpad, click, drag, click, drag. And if you make a mistake, remember we can always come back later and use our little eraser tool. I'm trying to get in all of that light color right there. I'm going to have to use a slightly darker color, I think, because it's too hard to see over here. Or you know what, maybe we'll switch back to like a lighter color. Oh yeah, we can definitely see that better. So lots and lots and lots of little fur. So I'm going to pause this and keep going, and then I'll come back in just a moment. Okay, so it took me quite a while to draw all these little tiny lines. And the one thing that I wanted to let you know is that I am pushing the lines outward around the circle. If you did all of the lines in the same direction up and down, it's not going to have that same sphere shape that we want. So you want to make sure that the lines, your like little fur, are going around the outside. It's like, think of the nose as the center, and even on the face, you're pushing it out around this little sphere of the head. Now, I looked up a photo of a pug, and I noticed that the pug kind of has this line that kind of comes up around the top of the top of the mouth, and from the nose there's a split, like an upside down letter Y that comes out. So I did add that detail. Now I'm just going to add a couple of dots because all dogs have these like little whisker patches, these little whisker areas. So I'm going to add that, and then that'll create another pattern so that I'll have a little bit of more details and more texture. Now, to create that shiny eye, I know a lot of us like to watch kawaii drawings, and you add those highlights, a big highlight at the top and then a little one at the bottom. But if you notice, he does have that one white strong highlight inside of the eye. And then there's like a slightly off white, like a gray or like an eggshell or like a light, even like a light blue color kind of around it. And then at the bottom, it's more of a golden upside down semicircle, right? Upside down rainbow shape. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a little bit more of this like lighter brown color to go around the pupil. And then I'll show you how to add in these highlights. So the lighter brown, I'm actually going to choose more of like a yellowish, like, so it's kind of golden. And then just make sure that my opacity is turned way down. And then I'm just going to start around the inside. And I know it's hard to see, but I'm actually creating that really light color inside that black pupil, because I can always come back and add another layer of black. But I almost want there to be like a shade, like a nice color reflection. So you don't really want to do too much on the top because the lighting is coming from that top right corner, just like our shadows pointed out where the light is in the opposite direction. So I'm going to just keep drawing these upside down semicircles, just layering, layering, layering. And the reason why I didn't turn up my opacity is because the layers, as I kind of mess up or go off to the side, the layers will create this really beautiful natural highlight kind of. All right, so I think this looks pretty good for right now, for what we're doing. I'm going to switch to a softer blue color. So I'm going to go to blue and then go to custom and then go to that like kind of grayish, almost like the sky. And then make sure my opacity is turned down. And then I'm going to add this blue layer. Actually, I'm going to turn my opacity just a little bit for this one. I'm going to turn this up so that the blue is going across the top of the eyeball. Think of the eyeball the same way that we added shading and highlights to the dog's fur. We're adding that that shading. We're adding that highlight and shading into the eye because they're spheres, right? They're spheres. So I'm just going to add a little bit more to the top. And you're like, what is happening, Miss Anderson? You've just colored all over this thing. I know. All right. Switch back to black. Turn up my opacity. And then I'm just going to draw a really light semicircle in black just to bring back that pupil. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. And I'm not making it as big. I want it to be smaller still. Okay, just a little bit right in the middle. And then we're going to add that white highlight in just a moment. I want to shade in underneath the eye because, again, they're spheres and they also have a shadow. So I'm going to go all the way around like a C shape on the bottom. Try not to cover up all those highlights I just worked so hard on. And then even the top, I'm going to add a little bit of shading to the top because the forehead and the eyelashes would create a little bit of a shadow. Okay, so this already looks way better than when we first started, right? And then we're going to go ahead and add in that bright white dot. So I want to make sure my opacity is turned all the way up, and I'm just going to hit it right at a diagonal from where my shadow is. So here's, I'm just going to click, 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 click. Okay, so now I have these beautiful eyes, right? And you can see this is way more Naoto and Hattori inspired. I'm just going to add that little, remember we pointed out these like light white semicircles just on the bottom in this golden highlight. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, but I want to turn my opacity down because I don't want to cover up this gold. And I just want to hit it like twice, just on the bottom. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, there's my little Naoto Hattori puppy. And I can come back through here and I can add a lot more details, but I think this is a good way to start. Let's just start by focusing on spheres and adding shading and adding details. And then remember, we have our layer steps. I have my puppy layer, pink, with my shadow. I have my background layer, clouds and grass and trees, and I have my sky layer. All right, friends, I hope you had a good time. Have a great day.